How's it going, folks? Adrian here. Welcome back to the channel and to my review of Guild Wars 2's Living World Season 4 Finale, Episode 6, War Eternal. We'll talk story, the new map, mount, and more, but beware the spoilers ahead. Let's begin. Let's start with the summary of the story in Episode 6 and my thoughts later. After last episode's shattering defeat at the hands of 𝑘ⁱ resulting in the death of Aurene, Episode 6 picks up in that state of mind. We are broken. Chapter 1 sees us preparing Aurene for a burial or a proper send-off, but let's not kid ourselves here, she's not dead. Remember her eating palaw at Joko earlier in the season? Yep, that has its benefits and Aurene lives, and she even has the ability to communicate now with everybody, and her first order of business is to get right back into the fight to take down 𝑘ⁱ once more in the mists. This results in a really cool mechanic where we're riding atop of Aurene, chasing 𝑘ⁱ through the mists as he opens portals, and our job is to open one to Tyria, damage his wing, and have him fall through right into it. We succeed, and that's how we land on the new map this episode, Dragonfall. In Chapter 2, Landfall, the player's character and our allies are all here on the new map, Dragonfall, for the final fight. This chapter slows things down a little bit and encourages exploration of the new map that 𝑘ⁱ is actually buried underneath. We can't get much data here due to interference we believe is coming from 𝑘ⁱ, so we make the discovery that ley magic exists on the island, which means 𝑘ⁱ is healing since dragons consume magic, and we need a way to stop this. This is where the Skyscale mount comes in. Chapter 3 sees Aurene discover the existence of Skyscales on the island. These are lesser dragons that will train later on, but for now, due to its flight capabilities, we can use it to fly right up to 𝑘ⁱ's injured wing to stop the blood flow that's jamming all signals. And because it's dragon's blood we're dealing with here, guess what? We can remake the original dragon's blood spear that can really hurt this big baddie. In Chapter 4, we do exactly that with the help of Zafira and 2 Zephyrites, and we plunge this new dragon's blood spear into 𝑘ⁱ, but unfortunately, it doesn't do as much damage as we thought it would. Taimi suspects that buried underground is more ley magic that 𝑘ⁱ is feeding on, so to the depths of Dragonfall we go. The final chapter of War Eternal has us destroy the last leyline sources with the help of Rytlock, Kaith, and Zafira, while our enemies, and in theory, other players are attacking his weak points on the surface, and more on that later. However, to truly end this Elder Dragon for good, the Scion and Champion together enters 𝑘ⁱ to destroy his heart. In here is a boss fight mechanic where players must defeat all the manifestations of magic that 𝑘ⁱ has consumed before getting access to his heart again. The fights are doable easily since there's lots of background exposition going on that you'll probably want to focus for all the story and lore tidbits, and once done, Aurene shares a moment with her grandfather before we finally kill him for good. And then comes one of the best feel-good cutscenes and soundtrack in Guild Wars 2, period, as we see Aurene ascend into an Elder Dragon herself. The episode ends with an epilogue on an airship where you'll get to catch up with your companions, discuss what just happened and what's going to happen moving forward, and then it's over. My feeling story-wise is it's a pretty epic finale for its short length, and this gave me so much closure, especially with Aurene, whose arc ends, and it started so many years ago. Plus, that's another Elder Dragon down. In some parts, sure, the plot points were very convenient and everything felt a little rushed for a climax, but that ending was hugely satisfying in terms of seeing how Aurene now takes 𝑘ⁱ's place. This then leaves us with so many possibilities for the future, but that is for another video. If you want to check out my playthrough of the entire story, all chapters, click the link in the card in the top right of the screen or in the description box below. Let's now talk about the new map this season, Dragonfall, and yes, per events in the story, it's literal. While chasing 𝑘ⁱ through the mists, he opens up 3 portals with elements of Balthazar, Melandru, and the Underworld, which happens to cross over into Tyria when we made him fall through the sky. He ends up being buried beneath this newly formed island, hence the name Dragonfall. Existing players who've played on the Silver Wastes or Dragonstand map, this new one is going to be very familiar to you. It's perhaps my favorite Guild Wars 2 map at the moment because it's almost the perfect open world MMORPG map on a cyclic event meta where there's constant events happening and ways to traverse it that incorporates everything we've seen and used in Guild Wars 2 previously. Simply put, this map is a culmination of many years of our gameplay experiences. The map has 3 lanes that players will push events out of at the very beginning of a new map's meta, and the first of which is really important as it establishes base camp waypoints on the opposite side of the island, where more events will crop up. Getting around comes naturally if you have all the mounts, and I really like that you can make a full circuit around Dragonfall on your roller beetle alone. Besides mounts, you can get around with oak hearts, bouncing mushrooms, ley lines, thermal tubes, and the full shebang really, which is why this is a great map for players who spent the time unlocking all those masteries in the past. There are no hearts or daily tasks in Dragonfall, which means everything you do is building up to the large meta event. Each camp in the 3 lanes are occupied by factions allied with our guild, Dragon's Watch, and we're constantly participating in various events which builds up to the final battle on Kralk's back, in which players have to destroy his weak points, take down 3 champions within 30 seconds of each other, and finish up the remaining weak points before the timer ends or crystal pylons call in a storm and we all die, which resets the map. What's cool about this meta event is that the premise here is we are tackling Kralkatorrik on his back on the surface, while one can assume that the player's character is taking on Kralkatorrik's heart down below in the main story. So from a narrative point of view, it ties in pretty well and shows us what the balanced characters are doing to help in the final fight. Anyway, the major plus points for this map are the events themselves, ranging from defeating enemies, building and protecting bridges, or having escort quests. You'll definitely want to do as much of these as you can, as successful completion rewards you with Mistborn keys, which are required to open all the sweet Mistborn loot chests at the end of the meta event. Speaking of, once the meta is done, a boss rush event begins, and yes, that's 3 more loot chests per boss kill, so it's safe to say that the Dragonfall map is going to be quite a fun place to farm unidentified gear drops moving forward, and since everyone is on it, make use of it, folks. Once done with the story, there's the shiny new stuff to look forward to, so let's start with the brand new Mistshard armor collection and the blossoming Mistshard skin collection. The Mistshard armor comes in diviner stats, and getting the exotic chests for each part, the helm, the gloves, coat, etc. are all tied to completing event-related achievements in Dragonfall, which is super easy because it's a meta-driven map like Dragon's Den where events are always popping. Examples are completing 10 events for the Mist Wardens in the Melandru lane will get you the Mistshard boot box, while completing 25 bridge events grants you the glove box. While the standard Mistshard armor design is pretty basic, it's the blossoming Mistshard skin collection that's going to take some effort. So once you've gotten the full basic set, you can head to the main volatile magic vendor in Dragonfall to grab the skins, and they'll cost you spirit shards, ectoplasm, and the new map currency, Mistborn motes. If you're wondering how much time you need to spend getting Mistborn motes stocked up for the full set, I wouldn't worry because they're so farmable and it drops very often from event rewards, dailies, meta loot chests, and just nodes in the landscape. It took me less than 2 days to get the full skin for my heavy armor collection, and now whether or not it looks good enough to wear is totally up to you. Out of all the variants, the heavy armor skins look way better for me personally compared to the light or medium variants, but again, that's entirely subjective. The other new shiny from this episode is of course the new legendary greatsword EXORDIUM. If you have the materials and money to stock up on mats where you're short, why would you want EXORDIUM, and what makes it unique, say, from the other 3 legendary greatswords? EXORDIUM does something really cool where it adds extra flashy weapon effects and animation for most classes that can wield a greatsword and has greatsword related skills. I highly recommend checking out EXORDIUM class skill showcase videos that shows you the exact look of those skills, so I'll link one below from one of my favorite Guild Wars 2 creators, the Herald. And then there's the Skyscale mount. This is Guild Wars 2's latest mount, a dragon that takes off vertically, it hovers, and breathes rings of fire for an attack, and it's all around a cool looking mount that everybody wants for obvious reasons, like being able to AFK mid-air now. Players don't get to unlock it right away in the new map, even though it's part of the story there. Instead, there are plenty of roosts around the place that lets you rent one, which is fine. The real kicker this episode comes with the collection achievements required to unlock the mount permanently. Look, you've probably heard the community's feedback and the backlash regarding this already. I'll just summarize it quickly for you. The Skyscale achievements are locked behind daily time gates, meaning once you complete all the collections for part 1, part 2 is locked until the next daily reset currently. But that's not where players took issue with it, far from it. There's 5 collections in total, so ballpark figure 5 days of waiting. However, within one of the collections, there's a time gate within the time gate where you need to feed your newly hatched Skyscale 12 times in total, but only 3 times allowed per day. So that's 4 additional days of waiting. That number of days is then determined by how much gold you have and how soon do you want the mount, because some of the objectives within the collections require things like charged quartz crystal. So if you didn't stock up on those, you'd have to pay gold to bypass that part quickly. Elsewhere, a majority of the objectives for these collections involves scavenger hunting in nature, like going around Dragonfall 3 times over to click stuff, and then much later on all over Terria, excluding the Living World Season 3 maps, to do the same. In short, it's very tedious. It can be fun or annoying as hell. Your mileage here will vary on whether or not you've unlocked a legendary piece of gear in the past or whether you're new to the game, and there's so many factors that will determine how you feel about the process of getting the new mount. Unfortunately, some of it is straight up indefensible, like blocking out earning of experience points in the Path of Fire map, since not everyone has the Skyscale to unlock its masteries day 1, so lots of us missed out on spirit shards for about a week, which is now thankfully fixed. Secondly, access to all Living World Season 4 maps is necessary, so new players who joined after the Welcome to Guild Wars 2 campaign, where ArenaNet were giving out all of Season 4 episodes for free over the past couple of months, well, that's a bummer, and there's not much you can do about it if you missed those freebies. And in general, there's a consensus from the player base that we've been let down by the lack of communication or heads up. For example, the last collection requires 250 of each Living World Season 4 map currency that players were last minute scrambling to obtain if they weren't sitting on multiple stacks already, but we've had 4 days of downtime during the feeding Skyscale process, which we could have used to prepare for this step instead. So lots of that blame game is going around, and I can empathize with that because I've got my Skyscale mount unlocked on the dot. I have not missed a day, and I stand by what I said on Twitter. I feel 75 years old after going through the entire collection process. But the good news is, if you haven't started or are beginning to get the Skyscale mount, ArenaNet has heard all of this feedback and will be reducing the time gate from 24 hours to 2 hours per collection, so that's good for all of you. My personal thoughts on the collection process is, it could have been better communicated for a core feature this episode. This is not a secret achievement mount like the Griffin was. This is the main attraction of this episode. Secondly, it's obvious why they went for this stretched out collection system for the mount. Hell, the new armor set is nothing compared to it, and I see it as a padding of content to keep everyone playing and in-game for as long as possible to buy time for the next update, whatever that may be. And that does make sense, but was executed and communicated poorly. Anyway, enough about the method, let's talk about the actual mount itself. I've had it for what, 4 or 5 days now, depending on when you watch it, and I've been using it as my main mount for everything. Taking it everywhere from ThornySubject to Dragon Stand and to doing dailies and stuff, and while I'm still getting used to it, I can see the allure. You have, in essence, a Springer and Griffin in one mount. That's slower overall, but very useful in situations where you know you're going to be AFKing a lot or circumventing danger on the ground, like during my 1 day of test driving it in the Tangled Depths where there's chalk everywhere. It's places like that where the vertical mobility of the Skyscale truly shines, and its last mastery that lets you recharge the flight meter by consuming a stamina bar while you're clinging onto the surface of walls or cliffs gives it a situational clutch save where you need it most. Its combat ability, the Ring of Fire, well, solo doesn't do a whole lot for me except looking badass, and if in world boss situations where there's tons of trash, sure, it's useful to stack with other players as fire rings. Otherwise, I still think the Springer CC Breaker and the Raptor's Round 'em Up attacks are still the best mount attacks out there. The other mastery thing it could do is repair new rifts on the landscape, and that one doesn't do anything for me, or at least I haven't dabbled in that much to see the benefits. But anyway, check back here in a month or so, and I'll update my thoughts on the Skyscale once I've spent more time with it, and perhaps I'll make a video about all of Guild Wars 2's other mounts too. So was it worth the effort though, for the short amount of time I've had with it so far? I'll say in some ways yes. Again, it's a very cool mount, it's a dragon, and you can now kiss ThornySubject's face up close. What more do you want? For final thoughts, War Eternal delivers for me. I enjoyed the wrapping up of the entire Living World Season 4 story arc, Orion's story arc, and I love the new map and I enjoyed the new meta a lot, and the game nearly took 1 step forward and 2 backwards with the Skyscale unlocking process, but that's about to change obviously, but there's nothing wrong with the mount itself, at least not yet, plus we still don't know what future content will be made around this mount, considering its nearly legendary gear-like obtaining process. Speaking of future content, here and now lies the exciting part for Guild Wars 2. where next and what next are the questions being asked. And hopefully we'll see a ton of in-game tweaks and updates and improvements while waiting for brand new content. To wrap this up, if you haven't played War Eternal, go give it a shot, and if you have, feel free to share your thoughts and experiences about everything down in the comments section below. Hit the like button for more on Guild Wars 2, and do subscribe to the channel and get notified on all my latest uploads. Once again, I'm Adrian, and I thank you for watching. Hey folks, thanks so much for watching that video. If you guys want to watch more, you can click the subscribe button at the bottom there, or somewhere over here. And don't forget to hit that bell to get notified on all my latest videos. So I'll see you guys at the next vid. Take care.